Hello, my dear friends. Today I want to share something very important: how to make your brain think in English. Many people struggle with speaking English fluently, not because they don't know English, but because their brain is not used to thinking in English. They understand words, they know grammar, they even memorize sentences. But when it's time to speak, their brain first thinks in their native language. Then they translate. Then they try to form a sentence. By the time they are ready to speak, the conversation has already moved on. My friends, if you want to speak English fluently, you must train your brain to think in English directly. No translation, no hesitation, just natural thinking in English. This is what changed my life. Today, I will share my journey with you, how I struggled, how I trained my brain, and how I finally started thinking in English without effort. This story is real, easy to understand, and I hope it will help you on your journey to fluency. So let's begin. My name is Ryan Carter, and I live in New York City, United States. I am 27 years old, and I work in a tech company as a software developer. But my English was not always fluent. In fact, I struggled a lot when I moved to the U.S. I grew up in a Spanish-speaking family. My parents, David and Maria, always spoke Spanish at home. My younger sister, Emily, also spoke Spanish with me. Even though I learned English in school, I never really spoke it in daily life. I was comfortable thinking in Spanish. Then, at the age of 22, I got a job in New York. That's when my real challenge started. At work, everyone spoke English. In meetings, I had to explain my ideas in English. But my brain was still thinking in Spanish. So every time I wanted to say something, I would first think in Spanish, then try to translate it into English in my head. By the time I was ready to speak, the conversation had already moved on. I felt frustrated. I knew English. I understood everything. But when it was time to talk, my brain stopped working. I couldn't express myself the way I wanted. One day, my colleague and friend James noticed my struggle. He said, "Ryan, you're overthinking. You know English, but your brain is stuck in Spanish. You need to train it to think in English directly." That conversation changed everything for me. I realized my real problem was not grammar or vocabulary. It was the way my brain was working. I had to reprogram my mind to think in English naturally. So I started my journey. Here's exactly what I did. 1. Speaking to myself in English. The first thing I did was start talking to myself in English. Every morning, when I woke up, I described my day in English. For example, I would say, "Okay, Ryan, today you have a meeting at 10 a.m. You need to finish your report before that. After work, you will go to the gym, then have dinner with James." At first, it felt strange. I made mistakes, but I kept going. The more I talked to myself, the more natural it became. 2. Thinking in English about simple things, I realized that my brain was automatically thinking in Spanish. So I started training it to think in English for simple things. For example, when I saw a cup of coffee, instead of thinking taza de café, I forced my brain to say coffee cup. When I was hungry, instead of thinking tengo hambre, I made myself think I am hungry. It was hard at first, but I kept pushing myself. Slowly, my brain started responding in English first. 3. Surrounding myself with English. At home, I used to watch Spanish TV shows, but I switched to English shows. I watched Friends, How I Met Your Mother, and The Office. I didn't use subtitles. Even if I didn't understand everything, I kept watching. I also changed my phone and computer settings to English. Every message I sent, every app I used, was in English. Little by little, my brain got used to the language. 4. Talking with native speakers. James helped me a lot. Every day at lunch, we spoke only in English. I forced myself to talk without translating in my head. Sometimes I made mistakes. Sometimes I used the wrong words. But James always encouraged me. He said, "It's okay to make mistakes. Just keep speaking." That gave me confidence. I stopped being afraid of making mistakes. 5. Writing my thoughts in English. Before sleeping, I wrote a short diary in English. I wrote about my day, my feelings, my plans. For example, today was a busy day at work. I had a meeting with my team. We discussed a new project. After work, I went to the gym. I felt tired, but I pushed myself. Writing helped me organize my thoughts in English. The big change. After 3 months of this practice, something amazing happened. One day, I was walking in Central Park, and suddenly, I realized I was thinking in English. My brain was no longer translating from Spanish. It was naturally forming thoughts in English. I felt free. I felt confident. After those initial breakthroughs, my life in New York took on a new rhythm, a rhythm fueled by the ease of thought and the spontaneous flow of conversation. I began to notice that my English was no longer a tool I had to work so hard to wield. It had become a natural part of who I was. As the months passed, I immersed myself even deeper into my new life. Every morning, the city itself seemed to whisper in English, from the honking taxis along busy avenues to the friendly greetings of neighbors on the stoops of brownstones. My daily routine evolved into a seamless blend of work, personal growth, and social adventures, all tied together by the language that now felt as familiar as my own heartbeat. One brisk autumn afternoon, I found myself at a community gathering organized at a local park in Manhattan. The event was a language exchange meetup, where people from various cultural backgrounds gathered to share stories and ideas in English. I arrived with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation, remembering how much effort it once took just to form a simple sentence. There, I met a vibrant group of individuals who were also on their own journeys to master the language. Among them was Sarah, who continued to inspire me with her own story of transformation, and a new friend, Michael, originally from Chicago, whose warm smile and easy conversation made the gathering feel like a home away from home. In that gathering, discussions ranged from art and music to the quirks of living in a bustling metropolis. As the conversation swirled around me, I marveled at how easily my thoughts merged with the collective narrative. I could contribute without second-guessing every word, and that sense of belonging was exhilarating. It was as if every conversation was a small victory, proof that I had successfully reprogrammed my mind to live and breathe in English. Work continued to offer its own set of challenges and rewards. My company, a vibrant tech startup in downtown Manhattan, was growing rapidly. I was increasingly involved in meetings where ideas were exchanged at a rapid pace. I found myself not only participating, but also leading discussions. One memorable meeting stands out. Mr. Thompson, my manager, assigned me the task of pitching a new project to a group of international partners. I remember standing in front of the room, my heart pounding, yet feeling a calm clarity as the words poured out effortlessly. I explained the project's vision, detailed the technical aspects, and even fielded questions with confidence. That moment solidified my belief in the transformation I had undergone, a transformation that went far beyond mere language skills and touched the very core of self-expression. Outside the professional sphere, my personal life blossomed in ways I hadn't anticipated. I began dating Jessica, a kind and thoughtful woman who had her own story of overcoming challenges in a new city. Our relationship was built on a mutual understanding of the struggles that come with adapting to a different culture and language. On quiet evenings, as we sat together in our cozy New York apartment, we shared our dreams, our doubts, and our small triumphs over daily challenges. It wasn't just about speaking English. It was about forging a connection through vulnerability and shared determination. One evening, after a delightful dinner at a quaint bistro in Greenwich Village, Jessica and I took a leisurely walk along the river. The city lights shimmered on the water, and as we strolled, we discussed the transformative power of language. Jessica remarked how language isn't merely a means of communication, but a bridge to understanding one another's hearts. In that moment, I realized that my journey had not only changed the way I spoke, but also deepened my connections with those around me. It was as if every conversation, every shared smile, was a testament to the limitless potential of a mind free to think and express in English. As my confidence grew, so did my desire to help others on their language journey. I began volunteering at a local community center, teaching basic computer skills to immigrants who, like me, were striving to thrive in this diverse city. There, I encountered people from all corners of the globe, each with a unique story, each eager to learn and to integrate into American life. I shared my own experience, emphasizing that every small step counts and that the process of learning is as much about unlearning fear as it is about acquiring new skills. I also joined a Toastmasters club, a decision that would further refine my public speaking skills. In this supportive environment, I listened to others, learned from their experiences, and practiced speaking on a variety of topics. The club meetings became a weekly celebration of language and courage. Every speech, every round of applause, reinforced the idea that language is a living, evolving journey. Here, I wasn't just practicing English. I was celebrating my own progress and embracing the power of vulnerability. The journey wasn't without setbacks. There were days when, despite my progress, I felt overwhelmed by the weight of expectation, both my own and that of others. I sometimes doubted if my new way of thinking was as deep-rooted as I hoped. But every time I encountered such moments, I reminded myself of the long nights of self-talk, the endless hours of watching English shows without subtitles, and the countless conversations where I stumbled yet slowly improved. These memories were not failures. They were the building blocks of my current confidence. They reminded me that progress is rarely a straight line, and that each misstep is a step forward in disguise. Every interaction, whether at work, in the community, or during a quiet moment alone, reinforced the transformation. I was no longer just a man who had learned English. I had become someone who lived it. I started dreaming in English. My subconscious mind had fully embraced the language. The narratives in my dreams were as fluid and natural as the conversations I had during the day, weaving together a tapestry of memories, hopes, and aspirations. Living in the United States, especially in a city as dynamic as New York, taught me that language is not merely a skill to be learned. It is a way of experiencing life. The city's vibrant energy, its relentless pace, and its ever-changing mosaic of cultures all contributed to my growth. Each street corner, each conversation on a busy sidewalk was an invitation to think differently, to break free from the confines of old habits, and to embrace a new linguistic identity. Today, I continue to walk this path with gratitude and enthusiasm. I still engage in those little daily practices, talking to myself, watching new shows, and writing in my diary. Every morning, as I set out into the city, I feel a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that I can express my thoughts without hesitation. My brain, once encumbered by the need to translate, now dances freely in English. And with every conversation, every new encounter, I am reminded that the journey of learning is as rewarding as its destination. This ongoing adventure has taught me that transformation is never truly complete. There is always room for growth, always another layer of self to discover. For me, making my brain think in English has been about more than language. It's been about embracing a mindset of continuous improvement, of seeing every moment as an opportunity to learn, connect, and share. And as I look forward to the future, I am excited about the endless possibilities that lie ahead. In the months that followed that literary event, my journey took on new dimensions. Every day was now a canvas painted with the hues of discovery, creativity, and unexpected encounters. I found myself increasingly drawn to the subtle nuances of language that I had once overlooked. Now, even the simplest moments carried layers of meaning. There was a crisp spring morning when I decided to take a detour on my daily commute. Instead of following the familiar route through the crowded avenues of Manhattan, I ventured into a quieter part of the city, a neighborhood known for its charming cafes and small bookstores. As I strolled down tree-lined streets, I absorbed every detail: the friendly nods from shopkeepers, the gentle murmur of conversations outside window displays, and the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee that filled the air. In those moments, my mind was a silent film of thoughts unfolding entirely in English. I marveled at how effortlessly ideas flowed without the need for translation, and I felt as if I were finally conversing with the world on its own terms. That day, I found a quaint bookshop tucked between a florist and a pastry shop. Inside, the soft glow of reading lamps and the rustle of turning pages created an atmosphere of quiet reverence. I spent hours browsing through shelves filled with classic literature and modern narratives, picking up books that promised to challenge and delight me. In a small corner of the store, I met Olivia, a passionate literature enthusiast from Boston. Olivia's eyes lit up when she saw my stack of books, and we soon began discussing our favorite authors and the art of storytelling. Her excitement was contagious, and as we spoke, I realized that our conversation was a delicate dance of shared insights and personal reflections. Every sentence, every pause, was a testament to the fact that language was not just about words, but about connection. Later that evening, as dusk settled over the city, I attended a community art exhibit held in a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn. The exhibit featured local artists whose works explored themes of identity, memory, and transformation. Walking among the displays, I found myself engaged in spontaneous discussions with artists and visitors alike. One artist, Marcus, shared how his latest installation was inspired by the immigrant experience, a mosaic of voices, struggles, and triumphs. His description, delivered with passionate fluency in English, struck a chord with me. I listened intently, asking questions and offering my own reflections, all in a language that had once been a barrier, but now felt like an open door. It was in these unguarded exchanges that I discovered the true beauty of thinking in English, the capacity to understand and to be understood, to share not only ideas, but emotions that transcended cultural divides. Back at home, after another busy yet enriching day, I dedicated some time to introspection. I sat by my window, a cup of tea warming my hands, and began writing a reflective piece in my journal. I wrote about the day's encounters, the emotions they stirred, and the subtle shifts in my thinking. I captured the way my mind began to favor English phrases even when recalling memories of my childhood in a Spanish-speaking household. That entry, like so many others, was more than a record of events. It was a map of my evolving self, a journey marked by courage, persistence, and the slow but steady dismantling of old mental habits. As seasons changed, so did my aspirations. I found myself drawn to more ambitious projects that challenged the very boundaries of my new linguistic identity. I began working on a personal blog where I chronicled not only my experiences with English, but also my reflections on life in the United States. My blog became a space for raw expression, where I discussed everything from the exhilaration of mastering a new idiom to the bittersweet nostalgia of distant memories. Readers from across the country, some struggling with the same challenges I once faced, others simply curious about the immigrant experience, began to reach out. Their messages of encouragement and shared struggles underscored the universal nature of language as both a bridge and a mirror. One memorable afternoon, I received an invitation to participate in a live panel discussion on a local radio station. The topic was embracing change through language, and I was to share my personal story alongside other guests from diverse backgrounds. The thought of speaking on air again triggered a familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. I recalled the early days when every word felt heavy and every sentence a hurdle. Yet I also remembered the transformation that had unfolded over countless hours of practice and perseverance. I prepared meticulously, rehearsing my thoughts, until I felt that deep internal shift, a readiness to let my words soar freely. When the day arrived, I sat in the radio studio, the microphone before me a silent invitation to speak my truth. As the conversation began, I realized that my nervous energy had been replaced by a calm assurance. I spoke of my journey, of the power of immersive experiences, and of the transformative impact that embracing English had on my identity. The discussion was both candid and inspiring, a vivid reminder that our struggles are often the stepping stones to our greatest breakthroughs. My relationship with Jessica continued to evolve in tandem with my own growth. We became partners not only in love, but in a shared quest for continuous improvement. On weekends, we explored the city's cultural enclaves, from art galleries in Soho to jazz clubs in Harlem. Our adventures were punctuated by lively discussions about art, history, and the subtle interplay of language and emotion. Jessica's unwavering support and insightful perspectives were a constant source of strength, fueling my resolve to keep pushing forward. Together, we discovered that every conversation was an opportunity to learn, every silence a space for reflection, and every moment an invitation to grow. There were also quieter moments, days when I stayed indoors, immersed in books or in the gentle hum of creative writing. In those moments, I allowed myself to revisit old memories, to reconcile the person I had once been with the person I was becoming. I wrote about the challenges of uprooting a lifetime of ingrained habits, the bittersweet pangs of nostalgia for the familiar, and the exhilarating thrill of stepping into the unknown. These reflections were raw and honest, echoing with the vulnerability of a man who dared to redefine himself. In them, I recognized that the journey of language learning was not merely about mastering grammar or vocabulary, but about embracing change and finding beauty in imperfection. As the years passed, my journey of thinking in English became an intrinsic part of who I was, a living, breathing testament to the power of transformation. I began mentoring newcomers who arrived in the United States, many of whom faced the very challenges I had once grappled with. I organized informal meetups, created online discussion groups, and even volunteered at local community centers to help others build their confidence. Every story shared, every word spoken, was a ripple in the vast ocean of collective growth. I learned that language is not just about communication, it's about connection, empowerment, and the courage to face the unknown. Today, I continue to set new challenges for myself. I experiment with different forms of expression, poetry, storytelling, and even spontaneous spoken word performances at community gatherings. Each endeavor is a celebration of the language that now flows as naturally as the air I breathe. I remain ever curious, always seeking new ways to expand my linguistic horizons and deepen my understanding of the world. With every conversation, every written word, I honor the journey that brought me here. A journey defined by resilience, passion, and an unwavering belief in the transformative power of language. To anyone reading this, struggling with the thought of thinking in English or any other language that feels foreign, know this: the path is challenging, but every step is a victory. Embrace the mistakes, celebrate the small wins, and never lose sight of the transformative potential that lies within you. Let your brain be free. Let your thoughts flow, unburdened by the need for translation. And most importantly, dare to speak, because in every word there lies a piece of your soul, ready to illuminate the world. As the seasons shifted once again, I found that every new day carried fresh opportunities to deepen my connection with English. One bright summer morning, I decided to step out of my usual routine and attend an international cultural festival in Brooklyn. The festival was a melting pot of languages, colors, and traditions, a place where every street corner pulsed with stories waiting to be shared. Walking through the bustling lanes lined with food stalls, art installations, and live music, I felt an intense sense of belonging. Here, amidst the chatter in a dozen languages, I noticed how naturally my mind embraced English without effort, even when the surrounding voices blended into a symphony of diverse accents. At the festival, I encountered people from all over the world, families celebrating their heritage, artists eager to display their work, and young professionals excited about new beginnings. One encounter in particular left an indelible mark on my journey. I met a woman named Samantha, a soft-spoken artist from Chicago who had recently moved to New York. Over cups of iced tea at a modest outdoor cafe, we exchanged our personal stories. Samantha, like me, had struggled with the initial barrier of translating her thoughts into English. As we talked about our shared experiences, the nervousness before a public speech, the excitement of a conversation that flowed without a hitch, I realized that our journeys were intertwined by the same underlying quest for self-expression. Our dialogue was effortless, our thoughts intermingling in English as if they were always meant to be spoken in that language. The authenticity of our exchange reinforced my belief that when you allow your mind to work in its natural mode, language becomes a bridge to empathy and understanding. That encounter was a catalyst for a new chapter in my life. With renewed energy, I began to look for ways to give back to the community that had supported my transformation. I organized small gatherings at the community center in the heart of Manhattan, inviting immigrants and anyone curious about embracing a new language to join in casual conversations over coffee and snacks. In these informal meetups, I would share my story, each word chosen with care and delivered with the calm assurance of someone who had wrestled with self-doubt and emerged stronger. I listened to others recount their struggles, celebrated their small victories, and together we forged a bond that transcended language barriers. One memorable afternoon during these gatherings, I was invited to lead a workshop titled Unleashing Your Voice. I remember arriving at the community center with a mix of excitement and nerves. The room was filled with eager faces, some eyes sparkling with hope, others reflecting the weight of years spent hesitating. I began the session by sharing how I had once spent countless hours meticulously translating thoughts in my head, only to be stifled by fear. I spoke of the long nights spent talking to myself, of rewriting my internal script until English became as natural as breathing. I recalled the long walks in Central Park when I realized that my thoughts no longer needed a translator, that the language had become an intrinsic part of my identity. During that workshop, I encouraged everyone to try one simple exercise. For one whole day, commit to thinking only in English. I urged them to describe every mundane detail, from the way the morning light spilled through the window to the aroma of their breakfast coffee. I urged them to speak out loud, even if it was just to themselves, and to write down their thoughts as they occurred. At first, many of the participants hesitated. I saw them grappling with uncertainty, but as the day unfolded, something wonderful happened. They began to notice how their internal monologues slowly shifted, how their minds started forming sentences in English without a conscious struggle. The room filled with laughter and the occasional burst of applause as someone proudly shared a sentence they had spoken without translation. That day, I witnessed a transformation in each participant, a step, however small, towards a more confident self. Life in New York continued to evolve, and so did my personal journey. My relationship with Jessica grew deeper as we navigated our shared experiences in this vibrant city. Weekends became our time of exploration, not just of the city's landmarks, but of our inner worlds. We took long drives along coastal roads, visited art exhibits in smaller offbeat galleries, and even attended live theater performances in intimate venues. With each experience, I noticed that my thoughts in English were not confined to the practical aspects of daily life. They blossomed into reflections on art, beauty, and the human condition. I began to pen short stories and poems that captured the essence of these experiences, allowing my creative side to flourish in the language that had once felt foreign. One particular evening stands out in my memory. Jessica and I had planned a quiet dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the sparkling skyline of Manhattan. As we savored our meal, the city lights below seemed to mirror the myriad thoughts dancing in my mind, all in English. I shared with her a poem I had written about the convergence of cultures and the magic of language. Jessica's eyes glistened with pride and understanding as she listened to my words. In that moment, I realized that my journey was more than just learning a language. It was about reclaiming my voice, my identity, and my right to share my story with the world. Throughout this journey, there were moments of introspection where I questioned my progress and doubted whether the change was deep enough. I recalled the early days of hesitation and the internal battles fought in silence. Yet, every time I revisited those memories, I also saw the evidence of growth, a newfound confidence in board meetings, an impromptu conversation with a stranger, a heartfelt conversation with a friend. These reflections reminded me that transformation is a mosaic of successes and setbacks, each piece contributing to a larger picture of resilience and determination. As my confidence grew, I began to experiment further with my language. I started hosting informal discussion groups on a weekly basis at a local cafe. These gatherings, which included people from all walks of life, ranged from discussions on current events to debates about literature and art. The discussions were animated and at times intense, but they were always underscored by a mutual respect for each other's perspectives. I found that the more I engaged with others in English, the more fluidly my thoughts flowed. It was as if every conversation unlocked another layer of my identity, revealing parts of me that I had long kept hidden behind the safety of my native tongue. One day, I received an invitation to speak at a regional conference on multiculturalism in education. The theme was Breaking Barriers: The Role of Language in Shaping Identity. The opportunity both thrilled and terrified me. Standing before an audience of educators, students, and community leaders was a challenge I had never imagined I could face. Yet, as I prepared for the speech, I realized that every experience, from the solitary mornings spent journaling in English to the spirited debates at the community center, had prepared me for this moment. On the day of the conference, as I looked out at the sea of faces, I felt a quiet determination settle in. I spoke of my journey, of the hurdles I had overcome, and of the joy I found in every word uttered without fear. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and several educators approached me afterward, eager to learn more about the methods I use to retrain my mind. That day, I not only shared my story, but also ignited sparks of hope in others who were on their own paths to linguistic liberation. Even as I embraced these public milestones, I never forgot the quiet, solitary moments that had been the foundation of my progress. Late at night, when the city had quieted and my thoughts had a chance to settle, I would often find myself reflecting on the journey that had transformed me. I would recall the days when every sentence felt like a mountain to climb, the nights when self-doubt seemed overwhelming, and the early mornings when I talked to myself in front of the mirror, each word, each stutter, a stepping stone to the confident self I had become. I learned that change is not an overnight miracle, but a gradual process, a collection of moments that, when woven together, create a tapestry of perseverance and growth. The transformation also opened doors to new creative endeavors. I began collaborating with a small group of friends who shared my passion for storytelling. We decided to create a podcast where we discussed topics ranging from personal growth and cultural adaptation to the quirky experiences of living in a sprawling metropolis like New York. Recording those sessions with the gentle hum of the city as our backdrop was both therapeutic and exhilarating. In the intimate setting of a microphone and shared enthusiasm, my thoughts flowed unimpeded, and I felt as if I were finally tapping into the deepest parts of my creative soul. Each episode was a testament to our collective journey, a narrative woven from diverse threads of experience, language, and emotion. One of our podcast episodes, dedicated entirely to the theme of language as a journey of the heart, struck a deep chord with our listeners. In that episode, we invited individuals from various backgrounds to share their personal stories of overcoming language barriers. The narratives ranged from humorous anecdotes of miscommunication to deeply moving accounts of personal triumph. As I listened to these stories, I was reminded that language is far more than words on a page. It is the vessel that carries our hopes, fears, and dreams. It connects us in ways that transcend the limitations of grammar and vocabulary, reaching straight into the heart. In these moments of shared vulnerability, I often thought back to the countless hours I had spent alone, practicing, failing, and rising again. The journey to thinking in English was, in many ways, a journey to understanding myself better. It taught me that every mistake was an opportunity, every stumble a chance to learn, and every conversation a moment to build bridges across cultures. I came to see that the true essence of language lay in its power to unite us, to create communities where our differences were celebrated rather than feared. Now, as I continue to live my life immersed in the language that once felt like a foreign code, I am constantly amazed at the transformation that has taken place within me. I no longer see English as a subject to be mastered, but as a living, evolving part of who I am, a medium through which I connect with the world around me. Whether I'm walking through the busy streets of New York, sharing a quiet moment with Jessica, or speaking into a microphone at a community event, my thoughts have become an unfiltered expression of my true self. This ongoing journey has shown me that language is not a static skill, but a dynamic, ever-changing dance between the mind and the world. Every conversation is a new rhythm to learn, every word a note in a symphony of experiences. And while there will always be challenges, each one is met with the unwavering belief that every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. So, as I reflect on the countless moments that have shaped my journey, from solitary mornings of self-talk to the vibrant tapestry of community experiences, I am filled with gratitude. I am grateful for every person who encouraged me, every challenge that pushed me to grow, and every opportunity that allowed me to share my story. My journey of making my brain think in English is far from over, and I continue to welcome each new day as a chance to express myself more freely, more authentically. And to anyone reading these words who is still standing at the threshold of this transformation, remember, the power to change lies within you. Embrace every conversation, every moment of uncertainty, and trust that with each word spoken, you are writing the story of your own incredible journey. Let your mind be the canvas upon which your thoughts are painted in the vibrant hues of English, and allow the world to see the beauty of your unrestrained expression. Learning to think in English is a transformative journey that goes beyond simply memorizing vocabulary or mastering grammar. It's about reshaping your inner dialogue and embracing an immersive mindset. Over time, these practices become habits that help you express yourself naturally without the burden of translation. Here are some detailed tips and tricks to help you rewire your brain to think in English, along with insights into why each method works and how you can apply it to your daily life. One of the most powerful strategies is to immerse yourself in an environment that constantly exposes you to English. Start by changing the language settings on your phone, computer, and any other devices you use. Watch movies, television shows, and YouTube channels in English, even if it means starting with subtitles until you grow more comfortable. Listening to English music, podcasts, or audiobooks not only enhances your vocabulary, but also tunes your ear to the natural flow and rhythm of the language. This constant exposure creates a rich background noise of English in your life, gradually shifting your brain's default language processing. It's like slowly painting your surroundings with English until it becomes part of your everyday thinking. Another effective technique is to practice self-talk. This might feel unusual at first, but try narrating your daily activities in English. When you wake up, describe your morning routine, or as you walk to work, outline your plans and observations. Instead of letting thoughts swirl in your native language, force your mind to articulate them in English. Over time, this practice builds the habit of forming sentences in your head without first translating, making the process quicker and more natural. For example, when you're making breakfast, instead of thinking, I need to make coffee, tell yourself, I am preparing a cup of coffee in your head. The more you do this, the more your brain begins to associate your daily routines with English vocabulary and sentence structures. Journaling is another excellent method to reprogram your mind. At the end of each day, take some time to write about your experiences, feelings, and thoughts in English. Don't worry about making mistakes. This exercise is meant to be a personal space where you explore language freely. Over weeks and months, you will notice that your journal entries reflect a more natural flow of ideas, and you start to express complex thoughts without pausing to translate. This form of reflective writing not only improves your language skills, but also deepens your self-awareness, as you learn to articulate your inner experiences directly in English. Engaging in conversation with native speakers or fellow learners is crucial too. Find language exchange partners, join community groups or meetups, or even sign up for classes where English is the medium of communication. When you speak with others, try to push through the fear of making mistakes. Remember, every error is a learning opportunity. The act of conversation forces your brain to process and respond in real time, which is invaluable for building fluency. Over time, as you hear different accents, idioms, and expressions, your brain becomes more adept at quickly understanding and formulating responses in English. Another trick is to use visual aids and labels. When you're at home or in your workspace, label everyday objects in English. Seeing words associated with the objects you interact with daily reinforces vocabulary without much effort. Every time you pick up a cup or open a door, your brain is reminded of the English term for it, gradually creating a seamless association between the object and its English name. This visual connection can reduce the need for mental translation and help your mind switch to English more automatically. Recording yourself speaking is also an insightful method. Use your phone or computer to record short videos or audio clips of yourself discussing various topics in English. Listening back to these recordings not only helps you identify areas for improvement, such as pronunciation or intonation, but also boosts your confidence as you hear your progress over time. Overcoming self-consciousness is key here. With practice, you'll become less worried about imperfections and more focused on the flow of communication. It is equally important to set realistic and measurable goals for your language practice. Instead of aiming for perfection overnight, celebrate small victories. Whether it's a day when you successfully think in English for an extended period or a conversation where you didn't hesitate. Recognizing your progress can be incredibly motivating. It reminds you that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint, and that every moment of practice is a step toward fluency. Integrating English into your hobbies can also be very rewarding. If you enjoy reading, try exploring novels, magazines, or blogs in English that pique your interest. If you like cooking, follow English recipes or watch cooking shows in English. By connecting language learning with activities you already enjoy, you make the process more engaging and less of a chore. This approach creates a natural environment where your brain is consistently exposed to the language in varied contexts, deepening your understanding and retention of new words and expressions. Mindfulness and meditation techniques can also play a subtle but significant role. Practicing mindfulness in English, where you focus on the present moment and describe your sensations, thoughts, or surroundings in English, can help anchor your mind in the language. This exercise not only improves your language skills, but also fosters a greater awareness of how your thoughts form and how language shapes your perception of the world. Finally, embrace the process with patience and persistence. Learning to think in a new language is not a linear journey. There will be days of rapid progress and moments of stagnation. The key is to keep practicing and to remind yourself that every mistake is a learning opportunity. By consistently challenging your brain to operate in English, you gradually break down the internal barriers that have held you back. The more you engage with the language, whether through speaking, writing, or even silent contemplation, the more natural it becomes. In summary, transforming your brain to think in English involves a combination of immersion, self-talk, reflective writing, interactive conversation, visual reinforcement, self-recording, goal setting, integrating hobbies, and mindful practice. Each of these strategies works together to rewire your habitual thought processes, making English not just a subject to study, but a language in which you live and breathe every day. With time, you will find that the effort you invest today paves the way for spontaneous, confident expression tomorrow. By following these tips and tricks with dedication and an open mind, you can experience a gradual yet powerful transformation, one where English becomes an integral part of your inner voice and a tool that unlocks endless opportunities for connection, creativity, and growth. Below are additional tips and tricks to deepen your journey of making your brain think in English. These suggestions build on the earlier ideas and provide even more ways to integrate English naturally into your everyday thought process. In addition to constant exposure and self-talk, consider incorporating language games and puzzles into your routine. Engaging in activities like crossword puzzles, word scrambles, or even digital word games challenges your mind to retrieve vocabulary and idioms quickly. This playful approach not only reinforces your memory of new words, but also encourages creative thinking in English. As you solve these puzzles, you train your brain to link meanings with English words without the intermediary of your native language, which gradually reduces the habit of translating. Another effective method is to participate actively in online communities and discussion groups where English is the primary language. Whether you join a forum on a topic you love, participate in a Facebook group, or engage in Reddit threads, interacting with others in writing forces you to formulate your thoughts directly in English. The real-time nature of online debates or casual chats demands that you process ideas and respond quickly, which helps develop fluency and confidence. This constant practice in a digital space complements your in-person interactions and creates a robust environment for language immersion. Language learning apps are also a valuable resource. Tools like Duolingo, Babbel, or Memrise are designed to prompt you to think in English from the get-go. They present scenarios and exercises that mimic real-life situations, asking you to choose words or construct sentences without reverting to translation. These interactive exercises not only test your existing knowledge, but also expand your vocabulary and sentence structure naturally. Over time, the immediate feedback from these apps reinforces correct usage and helps embed English thinking into your daily routine. Setting aside specific time blocks dedicated solely to thinking in English can be incredibly beneficial. For example, designate an hour after lunch where you challenge yourself to think about your surroundings, plan your afternoon, or simply narrate your thoughts, all in English. This practice can be as simple as mentally describing what you see, feeling, or plan to do, without any fallback to your native language. Over time, these focused sessions help shift your default thinking mode, making it easier to maintain an English inner dialogue throughout your day. Creative writing and storytelling exercises offer another powerful way to immerse your mind in English. Try to write or even mentally construct short stories about your day, or imagine fictional scenarios. This exercise allows you to express emotions, ideas, and personal experiences without the pressure of perfection. As you experiment with different styles of narration, you'll find that your natural voice in English begins to emerge. Storytelling not only solidifies your language skills, but also nurtures your creativity and personal expression in a new language. Finally, it's essential to track your progress and reflect on your experiences. Keep a dedicated journal where you document challenges, breakthroughs, and even moments when you caught yourself thinking in English effortlessly. Reflecting on these milestones can be incredibly motivating, as you see concrete evidence of your growth.